So, welcome again, everyone. I hope you can get me. If you can get the sound of my voice, thank you for reacting. I will use this opportunity to remind us the visions and objective of the association. The Cameroon Association for Molecular Biology and Biotechnology Initiatives is a non-profit organization, and it has both scientific and community engagement objectives. So the community engagement objectives are the promotion of STEM education, capacity building in students, and equalizing educational opportunities. The next community engagement objective of the NGO is health promotion. This cell has to do with general health promotion, the biomolecular aspects of health, and health education. The next cell of the association is the cell for environment protection and agriculture for food self-reliance. And this cell has to do with everything that is um, around climate change, around promoting agriculture, especially for sustainable development and food self-reliance. And now the scientific objective of the association is creating a ground for resource exchange in view of medical research and research as a whole for the implementation of biotechnologies in the sectors of agriculture, in the sectors of health and engineering. So tonight's event is initiated by the Cell for Health Promotion. And as a reminder, we are completing a campaign around sickle cell. And this webinar is one of the points of our sensitization campaign around sickle cell. And at Si Melon laboratories in Yaounde, we will have a screening campaign, which is obviously in view of the World Sickle Cell Day. So we are glad and happy to host Dr. Nkenfou, who just joined, and I will present her again. She is the president of the Cancer Association in Cameroon and general practitioner at Baham District Hospital. Welcome, Dr. Nkenfou.
Okay, thank you for the confirmation. So good evening to everybody. I am Mr. Nkenfou as listening or presented me. And today we're going to talk about sickle cell anemia or sickle cell disease. So sorry that you guys can't see me. I have a PowerShop page where I am. But this is the plan that we're going to follow. We're going to talk about what sickle cell disease is, what is the threat, what are the chances of transmission, and how do we avoid the disease? And then if you guys have any questions for me, then I will handle them. So what is sickle cell disease? Sickle cell disease also called sickle cell anemia is actually a genetic and they are prone to be destroyed to anemia. The term sickle you see here, it used to be used in farms to actually harvest some stuff or to cut out some grasses, but that's where the term sickle comes from. So sickle cell actually is a genetic mutation when on the beta cell, on the beta chain of hemoglobin, you have valine being replaced at position 6 by glutamic acid. Sickle cell hemoglobin actually it's also called defective hemoglobin A. So we used to know it as hemoglobin S, but actually it's the hemoglobin A that has a kind of malformation. So what we can see here is the normal hemoglobin A. But now the malformation is at the level of the beta globin, the one which you see down being blue. Here it is in its normal aspect. And once it undergoes the mutation which we just saw, it becomes malformed. And that's when we talk about sickle cell hemoglobin. So sickle cell disease is an autosomal recessive disease. It means that your parents need to have given you 2 gametes with the malformation of the hemoglobin B beta chain. So here we can see your hemoglobin that is misshaped. This hemoglobin that is malformed will make the normal red blood cell to become sickled when it becomes thin. And once this its cell membrane actually becomes weak, and then it predisposes it to become destroyed in a premature way. The other thing when we have sickled red blood cells is that they have the tendency to agglutinate and form a clot. So they can cause vasoocclusion. Now, why is this disease a disease that we always make a lot of drama around, and we try to advise families not to have children as such? It's because this vasoocclusion and this anemia has a lot of complications. So you have this man, and then the potential places where we'll have complications. At the level of the brain, this vasoocclusion or this blood clot can give stroke, and it can be as early as 1 year in a child. Imagine a child that has a stroke at 1 year. What will this life become? Even these micro-occlusions, when they occur in a repetitive manner, they can lead to brain retardation. In the eyes, you can actually have occlusion of the retinal artery, which will leave the child blind or have a loss of vision of the affected eye. In the heart, this same clot can give you myocardial infarction. At the level of the kidney, once you have occlusion of the renal papillary vessels, you will have an early kidney injury or kidney failure. At the level of the penis, this same vasoocclusion, these small blood clots that are formed, will go and occlude the vasculature of the penis, meaning that there will be a lot of blood flow in that penis. It will enter into area to go back outside. So this only in children, in any person that is sickle cell patient, this is what he can have. At the level of the foot, we are here. Vasoocclusion in a repetitive manner will lead to a decrease in the perfusion of the skin, which might predispose this person to have leg ulcers, which mostly occur at the shin area. The shin area is in French tibia, voilà, the tibia. On the femur, occlusion at the vasculature will mostly occur at the head of the femur. This area, we actually call it avascular necrosis of the head of the femur. Though not painful, but once you have it, you might likely limp for the rest of your life. Here on the hands, this same vasoocclusion will actually cause inflammation. This one is in kids, and it's usually the primary manifestations of sickle cell disease in children. It will cause inflammation of the digits, that is both the feet and the hands, and it's called dactylitis. So coming back to anemia, we know that the anemia in them is because of excessive lysis of red blood cells. Once red blood cells get lysed in an excessive manner, there is a release of bilirubin, and then accumulation of bilirubin in the body will actually predispose this person to have bilirubin gallbladder stones. This same anemia will prompt or will force your body to stimulate the bone marrow to produce red blood cells in an excessive manner. This complicates a big forehead because now it's trying to stimulate other bone marrows which did not even produce reticulocytes in the beginning. So once this second kind of compensatory mechanism also fails, because the anemia actually is usually a severe one, the body will start pushing the liver to also be producing reticulocytes. So at the level of the liver, you will most likely end up with hepatomegaly. So those are some of the complications which you will see in sickle cell patients, and that's one of the reasons why we do not want a child to live all his life with possible complications like this that can occur at any point in time. And that's why we actually discourage people to have children like this in a voluntary manner. So, what is the sickle cell trait? The sickle cell trait means that I am a carrier and I can transmit sickle cell to somebody. Compared to sickle cell disease, which we just saw, where you have mutations of two gametes. In the sickle cell trait, you have one which is a mutation, and the other one is normal. So this person actually carries this and can transmit this to any person, but him himself, he has no problem. It is even actually said that this is kind of an accommodation, like a mutation, which occurred in sub-Saharan Africa, because this sickle cell shape, if the Plasmodium parasite also cannot live in it. So people who are actually carriers, or people who have the sickle cell trait, you will notice that they rarely have malaria. So it's believed that this was kind of a mutation which came through in Africa because of the high prevalence of malaria to actually protect us. So this is what the sickle cell trait is. The white parts of every person, which you see here, represents hemoglobin A, and the blue part represents hemoglobin S. So the two people who are at the top are parents, and they are actually, they carry the trait actually, and they can transmit it to your children. So when you have the trait, it means that you are AS, basically. That's what it means. Now, what are the chances of transmission? Going back to a little bit of genetics, the first thing is that you cannot have this disease if your both parents do not have the trait, if they are not carriers. So once you have two parents that have the trait, the side that is shaded represents the S hemoglobin, and this blue side represents the A. So first of all, you need to have two parents that meet and whom are both carriers of the trait. And then if we consider the gamete, which is shaded, which is the S gamete, plus the other gamete, which is shaded, if these two parents give these shaded gametes to their child, this child will have this child will actually carry the sickle cell disease, which is the S, and then the other parent gives the blue gamete, which is A. You will have this child, the other side, same, this blue gamete with the shaded gamete, which is the normal and the abnormal. This person also will be a trait. But as well, there are chances that these two parents give each of the A gamete to their child, and their child comes out normal with the normal hemoglobin, which is A. So in every pregnancy, you have a 1 out of 4 chance of having a child that actually is a sickler. So it's 25% of chances. And the idea is that you don't know, there is no way for you or for us, unless science has not yet discovered, for you to determine which gamete you are going to pass on to your child during the gametogenesis. There is no way for you to determine this. So each time that the carrier becomes pregnant with another carrier, there is 1 out of 4 chances that that child could be a sickler. So how do we avoid this disease? Basically, is to know your HB electrophoresis. Know your HB electrophoresis. People usually say, once we are about to get married, we do a whole set of exams, which we call premarital exams, amongst which the HB electrophoresis is found. But my advice to every person is that you don't need to enter into a serious relationship before doing this. On your own self, you need to know your HB electrophoresis. You need to know it, and you can even start knowing it now, so that once you know, you already know with whom you can safely have children and with whom you. So the way to avoid the disease is not to make children with someone who is a carrier if yourself you are a carrier. So that being said, I hope I gave good overview of what sickle cell is, what the threat is, how we can avoid it, and the chances of transmission. If you have any questions, I will be open to listen to them and answer to them to the best of my abilities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor, for this very brilliant presentation. I believe we all have a better understanding of this pathology that is of public health importance in Cameroon. And yes, if you have a question, you can either turn on your mic and ask, or you can use the chat to type in your question. Now, Doctor, I will begin by asking this question. At what moment will you advise an individual to take hemoglobin electrophoresis?
Basically, there is no time. As long as you're someone conscious, as well, I believe this is a topic which we usually deal in handling Form 5. In Form 5, you already are aware of this disease, and then you can tell your parents, oh, I'm interested in knowing mine. So basically at any point in time, you could know, but we would say that the ideal period, or at least the latest period which any person could do this test, is at his reproductive age. Yes, at his reproductive age. Once you start having sexual intercourse with any person, you better know your electrophoresis.
Thank you, Doctor. And the next question I will ask, because of course we have a number of panelists. So I would like to know if this disease is curable.
Some research talk about bone marrow transfusion, which is actually very doubtable, because usually it's difficult for any person to have a total bone marrow transfusion. Transplantation is very difficult. In a short period of time, you cannot have bone marrow transplant of all your major long bones. Even if we say that we segment, for example, these operations, by the time you have maybe a bone marrow transplant of your right femur, you already have other sickle cells that are running all through your blood. Method, which is currently still being explored, as being a cure. Also, people talk about gene therapy, also read currently as research projects. But at the moment, the scientific community cannot say that there is a cure to sickle cell disease. I'm just trying to compare this, for example, with the vaccine of malaria. We have had malaria for many years, but when the vaccine actually came out, it became a news that went around the world. So in the meantime, research are still ongoing on sickle cell, and there is no cure yet.
Thank you, Doctor, for this answer. We have a question in the chat from one of our participants. My question is, is there a possibility that a person who is AS has symptoms of sickle cell, not really severe, but sometimes feel them? Like, can the S be more than the A in the person?
Okay. Thank you very much for this question. And yes, the answer to your question already is yes. Actually, research has proven, at least this one is known by the scientific community, that once you are AS or a carrier of the threat, this is actually not always as a 50-50%. Some people, when they actually percent of S, you will have a certain percentage of your cells who have a possibility of becoming sickle. And then if, for example, this sickle cell in your blood vessels actually agglutinate, you can still have maybe vaso-occlusion, but it will definitely be to a lesser extent than someone who is hemoglobin SS. So the answer to your question is yes, you can still have some symptoms.
Thank you, doctor. I have a question, and this is based on what we believe generally in sorry, what we believe generally in our communities. It is believed that a person having the SS at a certain age, if this person did not face any complications due to vaso-occlusion or anemia as a whole, this person is likely to live a normal life. I would like you, doctor, to throw in more light on this community belief with regards to this disease.
My answer to this question is that this cannot be a clear science. I'll talk based on experience. My experience with sickle cell patients is that eventually, some people have less crisis than others. Some people have less infections, but all the patients who might have no, they still have from that age. But also a question which is very children and babies not to have crisis because they still have a high level of fetal hemoglobin, which is actually more similar to hemoglobin A. So this protects them from having crisis. But once they reach 6 months, this starts progressively decreasing to maybe a year and a half. That makes them to have lived to a certain age without having crisis. But after that, they start having crisis. So even if, for example, you live up to the age of 15 without having symptoms, you never know when the symptoms can start. And also this might have been because you have not been exposed to the risk factors that predispose to sickling. They're actually risk factors that predispose these people to sickling. So you have acidosis, you have infections, you have extremities of temperature, you have hypoxia, meaning people may be going to high altitudes. So if, for example, you have succeeded to reach a certain age without being exposed to any of these, you might not have symptoms. But once you get exposed, you can still have symptoms. So to me, that's not a straight science. I hope I answered the question.
Thank you, doctor. If you have a question, I will pass the information again. You can use the chat section to write down your question. And if not, you can put on your mic and ask your question. And while we are waiting for your questions, I have another question, doctor. What is the advice would you give um to most of us in the house, like in the family setting, on how to cater, even if they don't present any complication?
Okay. The beginning was breaking, but I believe your question is how do you take care of a sickle cell patient? Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. So the care of these people at home would probably be a continuity of a care of care after a potential consultation, because there is like a medical aspect and then a non-medical aspect. So starting with the non-medical aspect is actually to avoid this person from being in conditions that would predispose him to sickling, because as we saw, the conditions that predispose the complications more often of these people are directly linked to vaso-occlusion and the anemia. So doing your best to avoid conditions that predispose to sickling is ideal. The very first one would be to be like a reminder to this person to always drink water. Always drink water. If it is a child, there is a couple, like a dose that will give you based on your age and based on your already above 21 years. We can consider the standard 2.5. So if you are the brother or the sister of this person, the very first thing which you can try to do with this person is always to remind him to drink water to avoid actually being dehydrated. If this is still a child, hygiene is very, very paramount. Hygiene is very, very paramount for these people. try to tell this person that going out on mountains and maybe going to the Boya mountain race is not a good thing for them because hypoxia will predispose them to sickling. And the other thing which your doctor will do for you or will ask you to do is that this doctor will put these patients on antibiotics because these people already are predisposed to infection because with time their spleens stop working adequately and all the type of germs that are only killed by the spleen have freeway access to the patient. So this child will be placed on an antibiotic and up to 5 years at least. And secondly, this child will be placed on folic acid, not iron, because the problem of sicklers is not a problem, is not an iron deficiency problem. But folic acid, on the other hand, is a helper to the bone marrow to produce RBCs. So the more the folic acid, the more to try to produce new red blood cells, live. And in some context, to some extent, if this patient actually is a patient that has had repetitive crisis, especially in a young age, this person would be placed on a particular drug, which we call hydroxyurea, which is a drug that helps to produce fetal hemoglobin, the hemoglobin which this child was born with and which protected him from crisis up to the age at least of 6 months to 1 year. So that's the medical aspect of how we take care of sickler at home. And the others are the advices to actually avoid all the predisposing factors.
Okay, thank you. I can read a contribution or equation from Drems from Kong. The two genes present are the A, and S. So each pregnancy will have a 50% chance to yield AA or AS. Probably that should be a question. Well, there is no prediction for who will be the first AA or AS. It can happen that all the children delivered by this couple fall in the 50% of the AS or AA or AA and AS. If I'm to paraphrase this contribution or question, doctor, should we take the risk of if we have a partner who has the sickle cell trait to have children, knowing that there are chances that we can have normal children? So what is your advice to people who think that, okay, we can take the risk, and in case we are lucky enough, we will not have sicklers? What is your advice in view of this?
Is your question with respect to two people that carry the threat, or one person that has the threat and one person that does not have the threat?
Two people that have the trait.
I would advise this couple not to take chances. Yes, a lot of people still decide to be to follow more of their feelings, but usually it becomes very difficult, especially if you have a child that have a lot of crisis. It becomes very difficult. Like basically, your life basically ends and starts for this child. And more often, if you have many of them, like for a mother, your life will basically stop every time you're leaving office because you have to bring this child to the hospital. And for the father and the mother still, the money that you work for is going to now be to invest into.
I believe so far we have had a wonderful session and considerable information from Doctor. And at the end of this informative session, we will have it on our website and on our different platforms. Nonetheless, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact us or contact Dr. Nkenfou directly from her professional LinkedIn. And I believe we have covered 90% of what we were to today. And on this note, I will wish you the best and have a very beautiful evening. Thank you.